Hello, everyone, and welcome to Beyond the Field, the official podcast of the Drum Major Leadership Academy. In today's episode, we will be discussing the difficulties that women face and how that has influenced our lives and made us who we are today. We will also be addressing some key factors of what encouraged our guest speakers to embark on their individual leadership journey. My name is Madison Rudy, and I am a leadership instructor for DMLA, and I am joined by Miss Emma Boone, who is also a leadership instructor for DMLA, Miss Noelle, Associate Director of Undergraduate Admissions at JSU and Coordinator of the Marching Ballerinas, as well as Audrey, the Residence Life Coordinator for JSU. We are so excited to be here to talk about some women leaders and what we've gone through, and so I'm going to go on to the first question. This is to Audrey. Tell us about the Women's History Month Committee. What inspired you and the rest of the committee to create such events for Women's History Month, and how has it impacted not only your life, but the university?
Well, hi everyone. As Madison said, my name is Audrey. I'm a Residence Life Coordinator at Jacksonville State University, and one of the pieces of my role is that I get to oversee a living learning community called the Leadership House for Women. And so when I started at JSU in 2019, I came in and there was this really passionate group of students, and they wanted to do something for Women's History Month. And so being new to the institution, I was sort of talking to the students, getting their ideas. They wanted to have some kind of rally or, event on campus to really show, hey, women are prominent on campus. We want to advocate for ourselves and just really work on empowering other students. Because this was sort of back in the time of other women's movements and other marches that were happening in DC. And so they wanted to bring that to campus. And so I had some conversations with a couple of folks on campus, and I remember one day I got a call from a history professor, Jennifer Gross, who is the other founding member of the Women's History Month Committee, and she called me, and I was like, who is this person? I have no idea what this number is, being new and still not really knowing JSU. She called me and said, hey, I know you don't know me, but I have heard that you want to do some Women's History Month stuff. I teach women and gender studies classes at JSU, and I'm really passionate about this. Do you want to collaborate and we can kind of work together? And that's sort of where the Women's History Month Committee was born. And in that first year, we worked with human resources and some folks in my department, our Title IX coordinator, to sort of see what funding we could get and pull some events together. And so that first year we were going to different departments asking for money, hey, we'd love to make this happen. Here's a big event that we really want to have on campus. And we did all of our own marketing, which was interesting. I'm not a marketing expert, so trying to pull that together, was interesting. And after that first year, there was a group of folks that said, hey, this was really cool. We should keep doing this. And so last year we had a university recognized committee, which was really awesome. The diversity and inclusion person, made us official co-chairs, myself and Dr. Gross. And so really from that point onward, we were able to have a budget, which was amazing. We were able to have, a dedicated group of folks, helping us plan events. And I remember one of the biggest events that we had last year was a keynote speaker, Senator Vivian Davis, come to campus, and she spoke about her role as a woman in politics and how that impacted, her life, which was really important for us because it was an election year in 2020. So we wanted to talk about, how does women voting and women involvement in politics really shape the outlook on folks and how you could be involved. So that was a really great experience. But what stands out to me is that event was the last event really campus had before we shut down due to COVID. And the day of that event, I remember getting emails from people on campus that said, hey, is this event happening? Are we still a go? There's this virus that people aren't really sure about. So we were thankfully able to have that event, but then really Women's History Month ended because we shut down, I think, 5 or 6 days later. But in that process, we've been able to do a bunch of really awesome things. So this official committee, which Noelle is a part of, and so I'm really excited to meet campus partners who are passionate about empowering women. That has been really huge for me, is to get to talk to folks who, in their different areas, based on their leadership, based on their involvements, really want to uplift folks, all across campus. But we were able to establish, official university awards this last year in 2020. 2020. So we have Women of the Year of both the faculty, staff, administrator, or for students. So those are two different awards. And then we have the Gender Advocate of the Year award. And so that was really awesome to be able to present those in an official university capacity, and have that be recognized, on social media and all that good stuff. And we're doing that again this year. That's actually our last event for Women's History Month after spring break, is to come back and have that awards ceremony. But it's been really awesome these past few years, since our beginning, when we were literally begging departments to help us fund, an initiative. It was very last minute, which is not how I like to do things, where, so Women's History Month is March and I started in January. And so I really didn't have any conversations until February about this. So to pull off some of these larger events within a month and a half time span, that was a little stressful. And now we're able to plan things, much more in advance and have dedicated campus partners. But that first year we had what we call the Empowerment March on campus. And that really came from the students saying, I want to have a rally. We wanted to have conversations about, we watched a movie in class called She's, Beautiful When She's Angry. And part of that conversation was about burning bras, and the movement where folks, burned their bras or they burned their diplomas because they wanted to show that, women deserve more equality in the spaces of academia or just in day-to-day life. And so we came to this happy medium of an empowerment focused march on campus. And so we had some poster making and some really great photos from that first event. And we were able to do that again for a second year this last year with a bigger crowd. And it's really awesome to have, we have university police escort us around campus, which draws a lot of attention, which I think is what is needed, right? Women need to have attention for the things that they're doing, right? And so that has been really fantastic. We were not able to do it this year due to COVID-19, but we did booth tabling and photo. We could come take photos with some cutouts of, what inspires them, and pick up our face masks, which I wish I had one next to me. I'll have to send in a photo, but Madison has hers. These really awesome Rosita Riveter face masks that we've been giving out. So really, Women's History Month, in a nutshell at JSU, the events that we've been able to accomplish are things from work-life balance panels where we talk about, how do you combine having a life outside of your career and how you can absolutely do both, because I think a lot of the conversations are women can't do both. And so I think that's been really powerful. This past year, in 2020, we collaborated with University Recreation and had a film series about women in adventure recreation. Past speakers have included Ashley Cockrell, who was, the first woman to score points in an NCAA Division I football game, and she was really motivational and inspiring this last year. And our first year, we had Mallory Hagan come and speak, and she, ran for a political office, and she didn't win her position that she ran for, but she talked really about how to pick yourself back up when you get back down. And so she was really inspirational. And so we're just trying to bring folks to campus. We're trying to, let our students and our faculty and staff hear from really great campus partners to talk about, the impacts that their roles can have on folks. And I think ultimately in the past years, we've really been able to draw more attention to the advocacy that women need on campus, the spaces where we can have conversations about women's empowerment. And that's been really huge for me, because that's one of the favorite parts of my job, is having these conversations. So that's sort of Women's History Month at JSU in a nutshell.
That was amazing, Audrey. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I loved hearing your story about how it started and what it's come to and where it's going. So I actually have a question for both of our guests today. Could you share with us some of your favorite moments of events or brainstorming sessions throughout your time with this committee?
Sure, I'll share. Like Madison said, I'm Noelle Stovall. I'm the Associate Director of Undergraduate Admissions at JSU, and I've been in that position for a few years. And I've been in another position for about 10 seasons now as the coordinator for marching ballerinas, which are a part of the marching band at Jacksonville State University. But super excited this year to be a committee member on the Women's History Month. And as Audrey said, one great thing about it is being able to collaborate with women from across campus who are very like-minded, and you hope there's women out there that are also like empowering and supportive and want to do great things for our students and for our faculty and staff, that just encourage us or move us forward in other ways. So it's huge to have that collaboration, and really a cool space to have a group of like-minded women. This year we did a couple panels that were really great. One was featuring some of the women leaders on our campus, and at JSU we're lucky to have some incredible women all the way up to VP and provost positions, which is huge to have women having such a pivotal seat at the table, as you would say, at JSU. So to hear from them and hear their journey was really cool and inspiring. And then, like Audrey said, we did a panel on work-life balance, and I got to serve on that panel, not as someone who has, a perfect work-life balance, but as just someone who's trying. And I think, it's either you hear like different stories where it's either like you can't work and have a life and do those at the same time, or you see Instagram work moms or boss babes or whatever that make everything look like super easy and perfect and life is always good. And it's really, truly somewhere in between there, just balancing everything. And it is a balancing act. And that's something that we got to discuss from different points of view of women who were, professionals, also mothers or partners, or had other careers, and how they balance all of that. And it's cool to see, in a lot of these spaces that you're just not alone, whether it's one of the panels or in the committee itself, is that you have those that are going through the same things. They have, some knowledge and some wisdom that you may not have yet that's helpful. And then it allows you to share what your experience has been too, which is really empowering when you get to tell your story. So it's been a great year for the committee. I'm excited to see how it wraps up.
Yeah, and I think, Noelle has so many amazing things to say. She has been a phenomenal member, and she was on that panel that she talked about and just gave so much great wisdom for someone that, has been really involved in the JSU community. I know a lot of the folks on the panel were just super appreciative of everything that Noelle had to say, so I just want to shout her out again, because I think one of the things that I've learned from time on this committee is that women don't hype other women up enough, and that's been something we talk about a lot. And one of the panels, I can't remember if it was one of the panels or one of our meetings, but we just talk about, recognizing the accomplishments of folk on campus. And so I will say that one of my favorite memories last year was when we had the award ceremony, and the folks that we were able to recognize, were just so touched. And we do something special where we recognize everyone who was nominated for an award by giving them a shout out. And last year when we were in person, I was able to read a little blurb about all of the nominees, and just getting the emails and the feedback from folks that said, I'm just so touched to even hear that someone thought I was deserving of an award. That is something that really brightens your day. And I think, we're in 2021, and just to hear that folks are still feeling, like they don't get that appreciation in their day-to-day work, because I think in general we don't take a lot of time to hype up folks, especially in the education world. But just that has been so powerful, and why we pushed for that process to continue. And when we had that award ceremony last year, to see upper level university administration come and show their support and really want to congratulate the folks who were award winners, I think we're really thankful to have a university president who shows up and supports our events and cares about being there. He came to our guest speaker that we had on campus at the beginning of the month and was, so appreciative of her time, and stayed to talk to folks after, and to feel that support from the university. That is something that, you can't ask for. It's just amazing that we're given those opportunities. And so that's been something that's been really rewarding along this whole process, is just the support.
Well, I absolutely love where the conversation is going. You both are very inspiring just listening to you talk. I think that it's great that our university is representing such wonderful women, and that you have created a committee like this to even promote that. I think to go along with what Audrey said about that the students here just really, really wanted to be a part of it. And I just think that's great that you're creating such a platform for that. So I'm going to move on to our next question. Audrey, would you like to tell us about the Leadership House for Women? That'd be great.
I can absolutely talk about the Leadership House for Women. So as I mentioned earlier, that's one of my pieces of my job is to oversee this program. And so if you're unfamiliar with Living Learning Communities, essentially it is a group of students who apply to be a part of a communal living area with similar goals and values, and they really want to work towards specific missions that we have throughout the year. So the Leadership House for Women is for female identified folks who want to have conversations about their leadership development and growth. And it's a pretty small program, so there's 16 women that live in the house every year. And this has been a part of JSU's campus for over 10 years now, which has been really awesome. So the Leadership House is actually unique in that it's housed in a physical house. Which is really cool because a lot of times living learning communities, are still part of residence halls or other spaces, and this is really a unique opportunity for folks to build, that true community because it's just them in the house. And I'm sure Madison can speak to that a little bit as she is someone who currently lives in that house and is part of the program. What's really special about the program from my perspective is the students come in and they have all different backgrounds, they have all different majors, they have different life experiences, and I try to encourage them to come in with their ideas and talk about what would you like to accomplish this year. So we have folks in the past who have said, I really want to have an event on campus about this, or I want to support a fundraiser, related to different medical causes, or I'm really passionate about working with school-age children and I'd love to support that. And so we really emphasize, getting out in the community and doing some positive community service, which has been challenging this past year with our COVID restrictions. But I will say that they donated over 100 canned food items to our food bank that we have on campus this year, which was really awesome. But, so we emphasize the service pieces. We also have a leadership seminar course that I get to teach. And so before I worked at Jacksonville State University, I actually worked at a different school where I worked in their leadership programs department. And so I was fortunate to learn a lot about leadership theory and the best ways to teach, leadership to students. And so I use that in a lot of the classwork where we talk about different theories. We do some personality and leadership type inventories where we can say, okay, you exhibit these qualities. How is that going to show up in how you continue to work? And in non-COVID years, we use the class also as an opportunity to pair students with mentors on campus, where we in the past have done speed networking with the students and faculty and staff who want to be mentors. And some of those relationships that are formed, are still really strong. There is a faculty member in a couple other committees that I'm on that still talks to her mentee, and they still, have those conversations. And to me, that helps build our network of women that we can count on and support. But I think the Leadership House is really special. It's one of those things that's sort of a hidden treasure at JSU because it is such a small program. But working with campus partners this year, we're really trying to promote that more, get more folks involved in the events that we're hosting, hoping that we'll be back to more of a normal event planning atmosphere in the fall. But it's really a special opportunity for folks. And I think especially where we're located in the South, I'm not from the South. And so a lot of students, I feel like, don't get to have a lot of those leadership conversations is something that I noticed. And so really trying to empower women that, your career is something that is possible for you, and reinforcing some of those messages about, how your values can impact your leadership, because folks, on campus have really strong values that they hold themselves to. And I really want to make sure that those values influence the way that they show up in their leadership styles. And so it's just a really rewarding opportunity. I'm sure Madison's going to tell us a little bit more about her experience. Hopefully it aligns with, sort of the verbiage that I'm sharing, but it's really a great opportunity. And the folks that go through the program, they go on to do really amazing things. I mean, we have sorority presidents, we have folks that are leaders in the marching band on campus, the ballerinas, which Noelle oversees. We have folks become resident assistants. We have pre-law students, master's students. It's really great to see where these folks go after their time in the Leadership House. So just really rewarding opportunity all around.
Yes, I absolutely love where I'm living. I'm actually here currently. But as someone in the position that I'm in, doing leadership since I was probably a junior in high school, and going to seminars and being part of Drum Major Leadership Academy, I was like looking for something. Like you said, in the South, it's very hard for us to find things like that. And finding the Leadership House for Women was like another opportunity for me to learn. And so coming into this position, I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna get the same things that I've been learning or whatever. And Audrey completely changed my mind. Every single week we have something new, and it's so exciting. And I believe like one of my favorite one of my favorite things that we did was we talked about the difference between how to handle a situation. And so she had us get into these rows, and one person had to ask them a question like a favor, and the other person had to say no. No matter what, they had to say no. And that was like one of the hardest things that we did as a group, because I mean, we're living in a house full of women who have wide range of personality, and now we're coming together and we're having to do a fun little game where we had to say no and try our very hardest to get what we need. And it was so funny because a lot of people were like, taking it as a joke, and other people were like, I really need to be able to set a boundary. And it was really fun to be able to do that, because for me, I was like, I am terrible at setting boundaries. This is great. So this leadership house just really gives so many people opportunities to grow. And to go along with what we've been talking about, to see these organizations come alive in a university is absolutely amazing. And it's so good to see that there's so many leaders like you two who are trying to make it better for our students. And I think to go along with what Drum Major Leadership Academy is doing, there are so many students that are trying to do the same. And so I feel like to be in this position and talk about these things, it's so good to be able to tell these students that they can do it too. And that they can look to see, like you said, the Leadership House is just kind of a little small thing that a lot of people don't know about, but it's something so amazing that has touched so many people's lives. And so if we can really tell these students that are in their high school bands, or they're doing drum corps, or whatever they're doing, no matter if they're going to do music, as their job or whatever they're going to do, they can do it, and they can find the little organization, they can find the little thing that can touch people, and they can really lead people to the right things. So I just think that's awesome that we're talking about this, and I'm just really, really happy to be a part of such a great university and these committees.
All right, so I just wanted to say that I wish my university had something like any of these programs. I think that is something that hopefully other universities and other organizations can learn from and start to adopt things like this, because I would love to see that just around the country, around the world, everywhere. I think it can only make things better in our world today. So as women, as we all are here, there have been barriers, there have been things that have hindered us trying to grow and do what we do. I remember I am currently studying music education. I would like to be a band director. That is a very highly male-dominated profession. So I have experienced my time just with that, and going through that, being a minority kind of in this profession. And like, it started in, I think it was third grade, when we were all picking instruments, and I went to meet some of my friends from my old school because I'd switched schools. And so we all met up and we talked about, because we just started band, and they were like, oh, Emma, what'd you pick? And I was like, oh, I picked trumpet. And they were like, what? Like, that's ridiculous. And I had like, no, I was like, what do you mean? I have no idea. And it's simply because like trumpet, brass instruments are normally also seen as instruments that people identify as male play. So I want to turn it around to you all and ask you, during your time growing into the woman you are today, the amazing woman you've become, what struggles have pushed you to rise above your trauma and the barriers hindering your existence as a woman?
Awesome. Well, I can start out. First of all, on your note about your university at Jacksonville State, we are known as the friendliest campus in the South. So I think we all take that to heart, and something that's friendly is giving opportunities to all students, regardless of who they are, where they're from, where they're going. And that's something that's really important to us and our character as a community. But to answer your question, I think one thing as a woman that can be, frustrating is, sure, there's a lot of barriers, and sometimes those barriers are other women. And that is something that had a huge impact in my life. I grew up very close to like mother and other, woman family members, had no sisters, all brothers. So getting to college, and some in high school was like my first time around a lot of women, peers my age. And that came with, a couple great friendships that I have, but it also came with some challenges when you get with a group of women. Sometimes that can be tough, and it can be a really competitive atmosphere. And that can be really hard, and other women can tend to pull each other back because we are competitive, and a lot of that is we're set up to be competitive because we're supposed to be competing for like these few jobs or these few guys or whatever. That's kind of bred into us in some ways. So it can be really competitive, a woman with other peers. So that is something that I went through in college, and dealing with kind of like that mean girl thing. And it's something that, unfortunately, you deal with as an adult too. It doesn't always go away. Those, mean girls grow up to be mean women sometimes. But what has been so cool that I'm super proud of is getting to be a part of our dance line, Marching Ballerinas, and be a coordinator. And the thing that has been so important to me from the first time or the first season that I was in that position was not just, yes, we need to give a great performance. And this, can speak to, any gender that I know a lot of our listeners are performers, but it's not just about giving a great performance, but having a great experience too. And that was so important to me with Marching Ballerinas because my experiences with them as a member myself wasn't always positive. It was on the field for sure, but, sometimes the atmosphere wasn't positive for encouraging women and being supportive and all of that. And that culture was so important for me to change because I'd been on the other side of it. So now with Marching Ballerinas, it is a supportive atmosphere, and it's some place where women can go and yes, dance and perform and do that. And I know for so many, being in the band is release, and it's a place where you feel comfortable and you can be yourself, and not a lot of other organizations give you that opportunity. But especially with us, just being supportive of each other, also encouraging each other to be a great performer, to be a good person too, not just on the field, but when you step away from the field, upholding those values that that you have, and lifting each other up and wanting to see each other succeed, because the only way that we do succeed is when we lift others up and have them succeed. We're constantly standing on the shoulders of others who have come before us, whether it's other women, or other people of any gender that's come before us. So I think it's so important that as women, we all kind of lift each other. So that was a huge impact on me, was not having that supportive atmosphere, and not as entirety, but certainly in moments growing up, especially in college, and having an opportunity to say like, hey, this culture needs to change. Let's change it. It wasn't done on my own or overnight, but certainly creating more spaces like that, where women can be supportive of each other is so important, to give that safe space for women to feel supported and to grow. So that is something that definitely played a huge part in who I am as a woman today, and now who I am as a mother. I have a daughter, and raising her to be someone that is like cheering other women on and cheering other girls on. And I know that it's not perfect, and we all have those moments, but that is something that has become such a calling. And I think it takes women like Audrey creating spaces on campus for women to really excel and to be comfortable. There are so many spaces that women are uncomfortable in society. So creating a comfortable space where we feel safe to be ourselves and to, say what we want to do, and to have healthy boundaries, and to, focus on things that like ignite our passions is so huge. So just a way I tried to turn around what was a rough experience for me into something that I hope has impacted the women that have danced with me, and hopefully even other women that are in the band that may not be marching ballerinas. I hope they see that it's possible to be supportive of each other and to lift each other rather than compete with each other.
I love that you said that you wanted to create a culture that people want to feel welcomed and encouraged. What things do you do to create that culture? Like what words, what actions do you do in order to create such a culture like the Marching Ballerinas?
Awesome question. So one thing that's developed over the years is something that we call our beliefs. just trying to put our priorities, and it's written out, and it's something that, you know, we'll print out, we'll frame, and it's cute to give each other, but it's something that's so important to us. But it's things like, you know, having a high character, and we're known for high kicks before I say this, but having high character is more important than high kicks. You know, I'm a good person first, and I'm a good dancer second. It's so important to start with what's really important. Talking about how our body is our instrument and being good to ourselves, you know, with our physical health, with our mental health, taking care of each other in that way too. Knowing that every performance, you know, maybe my 12th, but it's somebody else's first time to see. So really taking in those moments and being present. And that's good for performances or, you know, for practices, just being present in that moment, because they go by so quickly. And some days you want to go by quickly because it's hot or it's hard or whatever, but really taking in those moments, it just sets a climate of this is important and this matters beyond what I'm just doing in this moment. So we start with those beliefs and go off that. We have, you know, bylaws and standards that create a culture of taking care of myself and taking care of my friends. Not critiquing my friends, but letting our leadership, who we have voted in, critique others. So making it not a competitive or a critical space unless it's coming from, you know, a leader who's been trained on, you know, giving constructive criticism to perfect or instruct in those ways. So we take out the ability of peers really to be critical of each other, because it's not always necessary. So we try to do little things like that, have little standards and bylaws, and then just creating a culture of like, we're friends, like we're not just, you know, performing together, but we're friends. We want to get to know each other, whether we are, you know, best friends away from the field. When we're here together, we're supporting each other. So we're practicing our tails off because we want to give a great performance, but we're also going to have some events where we're just getting to know each other. And I think that helps, because when you know someone, it's a lot less, it's harder to judge them. It's harder to think quickly or react quickly or, you know, just assume something when you get to know someone and you know their story. And all women have stories, whether they're, you know, sad or happy or somewhere in between. Everyone has a story, and it's so important to get to know them as a person before you know, have anything to say about their actions or who they are as a person. So creating that culture of like, let me get to know you and support you, and then let's do it together. And of course the team atmosphere brings that out too, because the performance is a sum of everyone's individual performance, especially a marching band. You know, you can have a band that's great, but you can hear that, you know, trombone sticking out, or you can see that dancer that was off or anything. So a great performance is a collective experience, but you have to take that responsibility for your individual performance too. So really trying to balance that too is how we try to create that culture. And we're not perfect, and we never will be, you know, period, but we really try. And I think it's important to try and be better. And that's how we move, you know, women and those who, you know, identify as women forward, and being inclusive in those all women who identify as women. So moving us all forward, being inclusive, and knowing that we're all in this together in so many ways. And in a lot of ways, it's the only way is if we do this together.
I just love that, and if you're a part of the JSU community, you know the reputation that the marching ballerinas have and just the community that they build. Having worked with students that are ballerinas in the past, I just know that everything Noelle is saying is just so true, and it just becomes their whole way they conduct themselves is about holding themselves to high value. So I think that's just so powerful. You know, what Noelle is doing, and, you know, the girls that get to work with her, they should be so thankful they get to work with such a strong, you know, empowering person such as Noelle, because, you know, just in the time that I've gotten to work with her better, I already feel more empowered, and just listening to her all the time, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, that's so awesome, everything she's saying. I do want to talk a little bit about Madison's last question about the, you know, barriers and all of those, you know, challenges that we go through. My biggest advice to folks would be, you know, don't stand in your own way, because something that really has stood out to me, and I can't remember if it was a conference presentation or an article, but recently, you know, I learned that when women look at job applications, we go down them and we go, okay, don't meet all of these requirements, I'm not going to apply for that job. But male identified folks will look and go, oh my gosh, 3 out of 5, yes, I will apply for this job. That looks like something I can do. And so sometimes we stand in our own way by not taking chances on opportunities that, could be there for us, because you could be a phenomenal candidate. And, you just kind of stand in your own way by saying, oh, but I don't have this one little thing, which could be such a minor detail, but can sometimes lead to why men dominate some of these upper level positions in corporations, because they'll look at a job and go, oh yeah, I can sell myself on that. That's fine. Whereas women will often, put themselves in this box of, I need to be perfect and I need to hold myself, to these higher standards, which I think is really challenging as a society. Remember that you are perfect the way that you are, but also use your voice to uplift those of others. So I think what we're doing here on this podcast is really pivotal to uplifting women and just reminding folks that, you don't have to be perfect all of the time to do great things and be accomplishing, but also use your voice to help others. And so I recognize, my privilege as a white woman. I want to uplift the voices of women of color and of trans women and make sure that folks are including them at the table, and having conversations about, when we say women, we mean all women. And so just making sure that we are being inclusive in our spaces, because, folks, can often be more disenfranchised than, I am. And I want to make sure that we're including all folks when we're having those conversations. But really just don't stand in your own way, and don't be afraid to take a chance on life or take a chance on opportunities. I'm originally from Maryland, but when I was looking at graduate schools, I looked at a school in Michigan that I had never been to before. And so that was a really scary opportunity, but it was one of the best opportunities that I went for in my entire life. I love the opportunities that I had there. Same thing with my first, full-time job at JSU. When I applied to JSU, I'd never been there before. I didn't really know much about the campus, and I've got to do so many rewarding things in my time here. So, my advice really is just don't hold yourself back, because what we've learned is that male identified folks, they don't hold themselves back. They don't limit themselves from opportunities. And, the statistics show that, like I talked about with the job applications, don't keep yourself from opportunities because you might not have heard of a company or an institution that you're going to try out, but you could go and make significant changes and make, a lot of progress and empower those around you. And I think that, when I think about my job at JSU, I think about the next generation and getting to work with college students who, they're not much younger than where I am in my life, and just trying to sometimes be that adult and being that person who says, you can do this, and you can be the person, going forward in 5-6 years who is empowering others and is continuing that. And I think the more that we start doing that, especially with young people, the better society will be, the better changes we'll see in the world, and that will sort of get us where we need to be, right? Where women uplift women. That's sort of just my ultimate goal.
Well, I just love what you both said. You're both absolutely amazing. Well, we are going to end it here. I'm going to ask if any of you have a piece of advice for our students. Like I said in the beginning, or before that, we have students of all ranges from high school to college, and people just trying out for drum corps that aren't in college. And if you have any piece of advice that's, on the lines of just women, or people that are just women identified or male identified, anyone that are trying to make a better life for themselves or for people, I would really love it if you all would chime in and say what you would like.
Sure. So for me, I always have like a few go-tos, especially when I'm talking to young people or leadership groups that were so pivotal in my life. But the first one is just let whatever situation you go through make you better, not bitter. There's going to be times in your life where you don't get what you want. Maybe it's the leadership position or a title or a role, whatever it is. That roadblock was put in your way, yes, but you can grow from it and let it, make you better and help others going through, some of those tougher situations. I know I've had situations in my life, whether it be with other people or with my own mental health, that, you could have stayed there. But it's so important to just let it make you better and help others going through that. And a lot of times you go through things that just builds your own testimony and what you are able to help others with because you've been through it yourself, and it grows your empathy too. So whatever you're going through, let it make you better, not bitter. Pay attention to who you surround yourself with. I wish someone had told me that earlier. And I know, especially as a young person, and even, adults, you think, well, I'll bring this group up, they won't bring me down. But 9 times out of 10, I've seen, the latter. So it's so important that you surround yourself with people who make you better. Surround yourself with people who are doing things that you want to do, whether they're your peers or they could be possible mentors. But who you surround yourself with is the direction that you're going to go. And then, the last thing, I have something sit in my desk, and one side says be humble and the other side says be kind. And those things are so important. And I know, especially as performers, sometimes we can have some ego. And I think it's important to have a healthy set of a little bit of ego, because that is how you have confidence in your performance and you go for those next things, or you go for those roles. So I think, it's not that you should have no ego, but to stay humble in what you're doing and to know that wherever you are, you didn't just get there alone. I know that, with ballerinas, I have student leaders that are incredible helpers. I have women that have come before me. I have an incredible partner who's a band director, and he helps me as well. So staying humble, knowing that you're not getting anywhere on your own. So staying humble and asking for that support and just being kind. And like I said earlier, getting to know people before you have too much interaction with, judging them or making assumptions about them. But just being kind to people is so important, and can be, a medicine to a lot of ailments, I think, in our world, and as women too. If we can just learn to be kind and supportive of each other before we move on to anything or try to compete with each other. So that's my 3 usual go-to. So let it make you better, not bitter. Watch who you surround yourself with, and then stay humble and stay kind.
I think my biggest piece of advice would be that don't be afraid to let your goals change. Because I think a lot of the time we put ourselves in boxes of, okay, when I started college, I thought I wanted to be a doctor. I was a biology major. A semester in, I quickly learned that being good at science in high school is not the same as being good at science in college. And so my goals had to change, and I changed, my major to something else. And then I completely found a different career path. And that may be the path that I'm on forever, or it could be the path that I'm on right now. And just give yourself grace that you can have what you're working on change. Because I think sometimes people, say like, oh, I've invested my education in XYZ, that has to be what I'm doing. But if you find out it makes you miserable, don't keep doing it, right? If you love music and you want to make that a part of your career, don't listen to people who say that can't be a piece of your everyday life. If you love performing, figure out how that can be a piece of your life and make sure that is, something that you're striving for. So only you are going to know what makes you happy. And, don't listen to outside forces when you have to make those decisions about, your career path or your life. Because if you know in your heart that you're trying something out, it's not for you, then it's okay. It can change, and it could change again and again and again. And, just find what makes you happy and brings you peace at the end of the day.
I love that, Audrey. I've experienced a lot of that too, with people saying, oh, I don't know if, music education, it doesn't pay a whole lot, but I've found this thing that I love and enjoy doing, and it took me a while to get there to figure that out, but I'm so happy I'm here. If I could give any advice, I loved what Noelle was saying earlier about what she's done with the marching ballerinas, and that she had an experience, and then when she had the ability to used her voice and just herself to make a change and create a positive culture. So I think always my advice would be always look for opportunities to help, like she said, lift other people up, to make a change, to use your voice. I think that is just so important in our world today. So if you do have an opportunity to do that, if you do have an opportunity to do something meaningful, impactful, things don't have to, stay as they are. just because you went through something, others don't have to go through that if you have the ability to do that, or if you have the ability to figure out how to do that, especially. And there's always going to be some little girl somewhere looking up to you, so just continuing to be that powerful person that you are. And that leads me to my next advice, is just be yourself and don't try to be someone else. And it may take you some time to figure that out, but it's all part of the plan. It's all part of life.
You're amazing, Emma. My last piece of advice to sum us all up, one of the things that I've been learning and that I actually wrote in our DMLA instructor article is, you are the only person that's going to give weight to others' opinions. So if you let the weight that you're carrying of others' opinions that don't matter just weigh you down, you're not going to be able to achieve what you want to do. And so I think that is one of the hardest things that I've been dealing with as I'm growing into the woman that I want to be. But it absolutely changes my life and my perspective when I finally can get it at least one day or 1 minute or 10 minutes or an hour. But it's so freeing when you're able to just drop that weight. But to end us off, I just want to say thank you to everyone for being a part of this podcast, to Noelle, to Audrey, to Emma, one of the best instructors. I love her so much. But I'm just so thankful for all of you and for what you're doing in the community that you're a part of. Even if it's just in the community or the social media presence that you have. With what we're going through with the pandemic, social media is super strong with the things that you post on there, with what you impact in others' lives. So I just wanted to say that I appreciate all of you for finding yourself and using your voice, like we've stated, to help others. And I just think that's absolutely incredible. So thank you to everyone who listened to us and who enjoyed everything that we said. I hope that what we have told you and what we have discussed, that it's really inspired you, and I hope that it inspires others as well. Don't be afraid to use your voice and to be yourself and to be a woman, because we're awesome. Anyways, I hope to see all of you, or to hear all of you next time, and thank you so much for coming. Bye.